Welcome back to Screamers. I'm Jessie, here as always with Maya and Honor, and this week we're chatting about a Wembley triumph for the Lionesses, the latest WSL action, and women's football's mad week. Should we get stuck in? Before we get into it, shout out to Honor for racing back from the airport to be here for this week's record.
That's dedication.
I'm 100% dedicated to the podcast.
Well, let's ease you into that post-holiday bump and start with a game that you and Maya were both in the crowd for, England versus Spain, midweek. First off, how were the Wembley vibes?
They were okay.
They were okay. It was like a midweek Wembley Lionesses.
It wasn't a sellout.
School children going to bed at half time. However, we enjoyed ourselves.
We did. We had a lovely time.
And we saw some good football.
Saw some good football. I watched it last night, actually. I watched the full match at about 12:30 in the morning.
Better late than never.
So, really dedicated to the cause. But yeah, some really good football. The result is, 1-0 Spain. We'll take a win against Spain. Doesn't promise the most exciting. But in terms of individual performances, I thought that was the best game I've seen Lauren James have in an England shirt for a long time.
Me too.
Yeah.
The Lucy Bronze and Lauren James link up is just so exciting. Yeah, it's developing since then, both playing at club together. And I think, it was probably the most creative, exciting thing on the pitch. The sort of creative balls that Lauren James was putting in, she just sees stuff that the other players weren't seeing.
The creativity, but also the defensive shift.
Yes.
It's her work off the ball and right down to that slide tackle at the very end of the game. I stood up and cheered for that as if it was a goal.
Some honestly amazing defensive play from her.
Yeah, which we haven't always seen.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to know and remember that she does have that in her skill set.
Yeah, feels like she's actually inspired now to give it everything across the pitch in a way that I think other players are starting to do as well. I feel like there was never a moment where Jess Park stopped running.
And I also thought Russo was working really hard off the ball as well.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed with her. I wasn't massively impressed with Grace Clinton.
Yeah, I thought she was quite sloppy at times and gave the ball away quite cheaply. But on the other hand, I will give her props for had to do the kind of unglamorous, dirty job of basically stopping Bonmati from being able to do anything. And she did do quite well at that because Bonmati kind of ghosted.
Honestly, I wouldn't wish that job upon anyone.
Yeah, I think her and Kira Walsh, also it's quite funny, Kira Walsh just absolutely taking out every Barcelona player whenever she got the opportunity to. There's no love lost there, is there? Anybody else who impressed you on the pitch?
Hannah Hampton, really happy for her. She got a start. It was a big pressure game, quite a scary one to come in. I think people were expecting Mary Earps maybe to be our number one, but
she has the trauma still, maybe.
Exactly. And I thought Hannah Hampton pulled off some great saves. As you both know, I'm a big Hannah Hampton fan, but I thought she played really, really well.
Yeah, because I haven't always kind of backed her for England, but that game really showed that she can actually put on an England shirt and do it.
Yeah, it felt, and her distribution was good again this match. Which
it felt like she was in control. Sometimes it hasn't always felt like that, but it really felt
nervous,
like but it felt like she was really in control from the back, which I think really helped our back line as well.
Kind of felt the whole team felt like that. They felt way more composed than I think we've seen them in a while. It was you don't realise what you haven't had until you see them start doing it again, because Millie Bright was pinging these cross-field balls. You're hang on, where's that been for the last few games?
Is this another kind of England step-up moment where they have these games versus the USA, versus Spain, where it's okay, they're bringing it all for these big kind of ego moments.
Because they didn't for Portugal last week.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that's a very different opposition, because obviously with Spain, you're going to have to sit back a bit and deal with Spain and maybe try and score on the counter. Whereas with Portugal, when you're kind of supposedly in control, then they kind of looked like they didn't know what to do.
I was worried that we were going to do the same thing that we did against Portugal, of sit back and just basically try and defend the 1-0 lead.
Yeah.
So I was impressed that they still kept playing. We were helped massively by the fact that was maybe the most wasteful I've seen Spain be in a long time.
Lots of rattling of bars, to be honest.
I mean, how many times did Mariona hit the crossbar?
I know, I couldn't believe actually that they didn't get a goal.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it to come. Even Paraluelo, she looked dangerous, but
really
she was just never able to convert.
And I also think the problem is she is too fast. So she was getting these massive breaks down the wing, and then it's there's no one in the box. Right, let me just do a little bit of fancy footwork to waste some time.
That's what happens when you swap your athletics career for football.
Yeah. I was trying to remember what was it, hurdles or sprints? What was it that she was?
Yeah, I think it was hurdles.
God, I mean, she is. You see her bombing down the wing, and you're a little bit we're really going to test out Niamh Charles's pace now. But yeah, I thought Spain were off the boil, but we did play well.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. So yeah, it was a strong starting lineup. I think probably what Serena's thinking of for her starting lineup, and then she tested out a few subs, threw some people into the mix. So we had Nikita Paris making her long long-awaited return for England.
Yeah.
Coming on for Alessia Russo alongside Chloe Kelly being subbed on for Jess Park. And then towards the dying moments of the game, we also saw Jess Naz come on for Ella Toone. Thoughts on the substitutions?
I think for me, I probably wouldn't have taken Russo off. I thought she was playing really well. And I also think for her to do a full 90 minutes with England is a really good sort of preparation for the Euros, because she has been historically that kind of super sub role. So I think leaving her on for the 90 minutes would have been beneficial. However, I thought Nikita Paris was really good when she came on. Like Lucy Bronze, she has that like real fighting spirit, which I think England sometimes lack.
Yes,
definitely.
Like goes for every ball, like really has that grit, isn't scared about the opposition, isn't too respectful to them, and I think that's like really good for our group character.
If there's one word I wouldn't use to describe Nikita Paris' game, it's respectful. It's the way she moved the game on. I was like, right, I'm having all of you, every single one here.
Like you saw it this weekend in the WSL, she's like that. So I think I liked seeing her come on.
Definitely, yeah. I was happy to see her come on.
The one thing that I'm slightly concerned about when it comes to the Euros is I'm not convinced Nikita Paris will be in the squad in the summer. I'm pretty sure that Aggie Beever-Jones will be. And I'm really worried that Aggie Beever-Jones is not getting these minutes in the England shirt.
So I was really surprised that Jess Naz came on instead of Aggie Beever-Jones. I feel like Serena has given Jess Naz so much game time comparatively to the others coming up kind of around her. But she performs the worst in the WSL of that group. So I don't really understand that. Like if it had been me, I definitely would have brought Aggie on. I think, again, Aggie is a real fighter.
Yeah.
Jess Naz, even in these last few minutes of the game, she would get to the ball because she is fast.
Yeah.
But once she gets there, she pulls away. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't have the confidence to actually go in and then try and do something. So she kind of gets there and then decelerates, and it's really unsatisfying to watch.
Frustrating to watch because if she gets that ball and commits to it, she's past defenders, especially in the dying minutes of the game when they're tired.
Exactly.
I just wish she would do that. Before we jump into the WSL, there was obviously lots of other Nations League games going on in the week. We won't go through all of them. Fear not, everybody. But massive shout out to Wales. We ended up watching the second half of that collectively together after we got a text to let us know that Wales had a penalty.
We were on the edge of our seat.
Rapidly scrolling through iPlayer to be able to find the feed in time, just in time to watch Wales score an equaliser against Sweden.
That was wild.
I'm not sure what the difference is in terms of world rankings between those two teams, but
it's massive.
If you didn't know and you watched that match, especially that second half, I think you would think Wales were the higher ranked team.
Exactly, and Sweden are stacked. They've got like Eriksson, Blackstenius,
Lena Hurtig,
Nat Bjorn, Angeldal, Lena Hurtig, Rolfo. Like they have so many, and Ritten Cannerud, they have so many good players.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Like Wales were putting up a good fight. At one point, Honor said, "Why do Wales look like Barcelona right now?"
Yeah, the tiki-taka. I don't know what that is in Welsh.
Tiki-taka. Yeah, I loved Wales. I just thought they really held their own, and it's exciting for the Euros to see that they're not just going to roll over and be pulled apart. They're actually showing that they're meant to be there at this level.
I also thought some of that was down to hearing Rhiannon Wilkinson, their new manager, speak at the end. Like the way she is so committed to kind of rotating her squad, giving younger players a chance, really believes in her squad of players. Honestly, Serena could take some notes from that because she used all her subs, didn't she? She brought on all her younger players. She has so much confidence in them and they all performed.
I get the sense that Rhiannon Wilkinson really watches how her squad do in their league games as well. She's like giving those younger players a chance, which I think Serena really needs to do over the next few months. There's another round of Nations League games in April, but there's some people who need to be doing a bit, I think, to really lock that place down. So speaking of which, we dig into some of the WSL games from this weekend. We went in nicely with the England match to ease you back in on her, but let's jump straight into Arsenal West Ham because she's back.
I was like, honestly, not even aware of the score when the game was happening.
I did think you were suspiciously quiet in the group chat, especially when. So it started with an absolute shock to everybody's system. Very quick 2-0 lead for West Ham.
12 minutes, within 12 minutes.
How do you feel, Maya, about your team conceding from 2 corners in a row?
Unfortunately, I wasn't like hugely surprised. I just, with these banana skin games, we often come out not victorious, or at least we did in our Idol era. So I wasn't surprised, but I was extremely disappointed.
It was like they had never
defended a corner before. Yeah, totally. Yeah, but I do think that we have struggled in set pieces. Like we've struggled to score in set pieces, and we have struggled to defend them. I don't think that's particularly new. But yeah, it was a very stressful watch, this game. But I thought it was also a really strange starting 11.
Yeah.
I've since reflected because Ford and Kari Cooney-Cross both weren't in the starting 11, and I do wonder if that's something to do with coming back from international duty.
I think
and
we saw that across the
Yeah.
league. Lots of teams have come back with quite severe cases of jet lag. So I think that really affected starting lineups across the league.
But the game completely changed when those substitutions were made at 55 minutes.
Yeah, so it was 2-0 to West Ham and then 3-1 up. And I think when West Ham went 3-1 up, I think it was really like, this could be quite a bit of egg on the face for the Arsenal, the Arsenal team's results and, attempt to lock down that Champions League spot. And then Renee Slagers was like, right, enough of this. I'm sorry, Kim. I'm sorry, Leah Walty, but you've
had your fun.
You've had your fun, and now we're going to...
Bye, Grandma.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
But yeah, those substitutions really, really changed the game.
So who came on?
Kyra Cooney-Cross came on.
Yep.
Caitlin Ford came on.
Yeah.
And it was like they just reinvigorated everybody else
And
on the pitch.
within 7 minutes, we'd scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
Within 7 minutes of those changes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was like they reinvigorated Chloe Kelly as well because...
Who actually had her first goal back for Arsenal, and it was such a good one.
It was brilliant.
Did you see it?
Goal,
yeah.
Flying
It was a really
karate
good
kick finish.
Yeah.
I thought she was one of the best players on the pitch because she was constantly, even when it was very much looking like backs against the wall for Arsenal, constantly driving. Kyra Cooney-Cross it really feels like Kim Little has transferred her powers to Kyra Cooney-Cross.
She is such quality. She just commands the team from the midfield, doesn't she?
The amount of times I was watching her run through like 4 players and come away with the ball.
Yeah.
It
sticks to her.
Just absolutely magic. So very exciting 4-3 win.
Nice to see West Ham actually
have some fight,
something to offer.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely been improvement there recently. Shakira Martinez has been a great signing.
She was fantastic.
She was so good. She was really
took her goal really well.
Yeah.
That finish was just so perfectly
really great sort of centre forward play for that goal. Speaking of centre forwards, Mallard from Man United
oh my god, that run in from Toon's ball, brilliant.
So they were the early game on Sunday and it finished Manchester United 2 Leicester 0, sort of versus the bubble that Leicester have been having recently of run of good form, but I do still think they're probably safely out of that relegation scrap. But yeah, Mallard's not had a lot of opportunities to really start and put her mark on games because of the form that Turlin's been in, who's been absolutely fantastic. But she was brilliant. Not just the goal, the assist for Leah Goulton, the work she was doing off the ball, like defensive shifts, making the runs. Good. It was really good to see. Also Ella Toon as well. I feel like Tooney's rediscovering her consistency just in time for the summer.
She's been really good for the last couple of months, since returning from her injury.
Yeah, and it felt like this was what we were seeing, not necessarily like the goal scoring side of her, but the creativity. And she kept popping up in pockets all over the field. It's like, where's this been? Where's this been, love?
It's really exciting.
Just in time for the summer. It wasn't a great showing for Leicester in terms of the result, but I thought they had some good moments in the match, and I really hope that they can keep hold of both Ruby Mason and Missy Goodwin, because that will be good for the league if they can hold on to them and build a team around them.
We had some comments on our video as well about just how good she's been for Leicester, which I think if you're not watching Leicester week in, week out,
you
probably
may have gone
flies under the radar.
Yeah. I think she's definitely going to be sort of one to watch over the summers to see where she moves. I mean, lots of teams would probably love her to shore up their midfield. I know, I wouldn't mind her at Liverpool, who in their match up against Crystal Palace came away with a 1-0 win in the new manager derby, which we'll touch on a bit more later. But yeah, so it was the first games in charge for Leif Gunnar Smerud for Crystal Palace and Amber Whiteley for Liverpool. Not the most exciting of games. I thought Liverpool were really dominant in the first half and Palace just could not get out of their own box, which I think has been sort of the story of them recently. There was a moment where I thought they might be able to put on a run and escape relegation, but now it's looking, I think, increasingly unlikely.
Oh, it's a shame.
Which is a real shame. But having said that, Aston Villa, of which we'll get to in a second, but Aston Villa could, really sort of surprise us with a race to the bottom. I thought, shout out to Kerry Holland, who played her 100th game for Liverpool and was just grafting all over the pitch, as she always does.
One of my new favourite players now that I've watched her play a few times for Wales.
Now that you're becoming a big Welsh
huge
ultra.
Wales fan,
Are you going to get her name on your Wales shirt?
Yeah, maybe.
You're absolutely going to get a Welsh shirt on you. Are you going to be switching between them in Switzerland this summer, I can tell. But yeah, so it was not the most convincing of performances for Liverpool, but I'll take a win. And then elsewhere, we had Brighton 2, Chelsea 2.
This was a great game.
This was a fantastic game.
Such a good
Just
game.
from watching the highlights, this seemed like a cracker.
Brighton haven't lost at home yet this season, and they still haven't, which I love.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's
They've
so
got that
cool.
streak going still.
And they were almost going to ruin the invincible streak for Chelsea.
Had the game had VAR, they would have done.
Had the linesmen not had blinding sunshine in their eyes.
Yeah.
I actually genuinely think if
it was really sunny.
It was so, and you kept seeing the liner just squinting because it was directly
and it was quite an obvious offside call.
full body width. It was one that you would have been entitled to have a defender stick their arm up. Leah Williamson would have been entitled to have a hand up on that one. I thought it was the best Brighton have played for ages.
Definitely.
Yeah, they've had a bit of a lull, but it seems like back
Chelsea couldn't get out of their defensive third for the first 10 minutes. Yeah. It was amazing.
It really felt like a blueprint for any teams who are going to be coming up against Chelsea of how to play them going forward. I mean, they still obviously had their moments of magic, and Sandy Baltimore's goal was
amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
It was gorgeous.
Quite frustrating that for how well Brighton played and like as a team to then not get a very well-deserved win because of quite unfortunate call. But yeah, really, really exciting game for them, and it puts Brighton as sort of the top of the chaser pack.
They're looking great. They've made some really good signings for this season, and it's really paying off.
And even though they've had a bit of a lull recently, still the consistency from the start of the season to now is like such a step up.
Consistency, I think, is becoming the thing that is really separating teams in the league, because if you look down towards the bottom at Aston Villa, so they were playing Everton and they lost 2-0, and just I cannot understand what Aston Villa are doing this season. 2 absolute massive defensive cock-ups. They just couldn't clear the ball from a succession of crosses for the first one, and then it was a real sort of keeper error led to Everton's second goal. Everton was set up really well, absorbed any sort of Villa attacks and sort of restricted them to out of the box shots. So
I think it was quite a weekend of sloppy defending from what I watched, to be honest.
Yeah.
Back lines just being cut open left, right and centre.
Everybody's tired after the international break.
Is that what?
No one wants to defend anymore.
I mean, I don't think we can necessarily give that grace to Spurs, though, because unfortunately the goals they conceded were created entirely by people who had been flying across the world for the international break. Go on, Maya. You said you watched some of this game.
I watched a bit of it, I mean, I think Spurs would do well to strengthen their midfield to enable Beth England to do what she does best. When she actually was in position, she looked really dangerous. She scored a great goal. She had a few other great chances. But the rest of the time, she has to play so deep that she doesn't have the option to try and get those chances.
Yeah. So it feels like such a waste.
Yeah. It really is, because she was playing really well. And again, Man City's backline was not looking good at the beginning.
Yeah, they're really prone to a wobble this season.
I mean, they're missing Alex Greenwood, aren't they?
Really
I'm surprised quite how much that has had such a huge effect on the team.
But it's also the others, like Wahhabi and Alexandri have had some stinkers this season. And then obviously Kirsten Kasperai can also be prone to a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, but I'll not hear a bad word about my favourite little Snapchatter.
I absolutely love our TikTok queen.
City are sort of inconsistent. You're right. The big thing with Spurs is that they can't get Beth England to play where she should be. I do wonder sometimes if she questions that move. I think it was right for her to leave Chelsea a couple of seasons ago when she did, because she was so far down the pecking order, but maybe
Spurs was not the right place.
I think if Daly hadn't been at Villa might have been a good fit for her, but she almost got a equaliser at the very
just before half time
end. But we don't have a Screamers clearances of the week, but shout out to Ashley Neville for that insane goal line clearance. It looked like she just kicked the ball into the top of her own net.
It was an amazing clearance. It's now looking like the goal actually did go in, and due to the lack of goal line technology.
You can still get to claim it, Ashley Neville. It's not registered on the score sheet.
Respect.
So a bit of a topsy-turvy weekend in the WSL, and then it's going to go on break again for a week as we get into the FA Cup quarterfinals. But I'm sure that there'll be more surprises when the league does return in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, guys, so it's time to pick our Screamers of the week. If you're a new listener, this is the segment where we pick our favourite goals of the week from the world of women's football.
I think Maya won the most runaway vote we've had so far. Swept us like 90% of the votes. So go on, Maya, you get to go first.
My honourable mention goes to Ola Slager's goal in Brighton-Chelsea, which was a Nikita Paris assist, who drove the ball down the pitch like so emphatically, lays it off to Ola Slegers, who hits it at such a tight angle past Millie Bright and Hannah Hampton. It was gorgeous.
I did not understand how it went in.
It was amazing.
Yeah, very tight.
Yeah, it's a great
goal.
You
love tight angle.
I do love tight angle this week because, Jessie's gone. My screamer of the week is Katie McCabe's iconic last second release across the goal, the tightest angle I think I've ever seen actually score.
It did feel like she had fully overrun that, and then I was like, oh, never seen that.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was like, she's left it too late.
Yeah. She can't square it. No one's there. I still don't understand.
It has to be seen to be believed.
Yeah, it was a mad angle. Who are you picking, Anna?
I'm going to go for Sandy, Baltimore, for Chelsea against Brighton. Oh my God, guys.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
A sexy volley.
You love a volley.
I love a volley. Maya loves a tight angle. And this week there were screamers galore.
There were.
So yeah, it's an amazing cross from Lauren James actually.
Yes.
After a really, really cheeky bit of footwork. And then it gets kind of headed back, but Baltimore just catches it on the volley.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I loved watching her set
swooshes.
herself. That is, you could play that to like kids learning how to play football and be like, this is how you set yourself and hit a ball. It was.
Oof.
I'm a big fan of Sandy Baltimore. I think
Me
she's
too.
fantastic.
She's had an amazing season.
She has.
Okay, what about you, Jessie?
I'm actually picking somebody I have shouted out before, and I am deeply obsessed with her as a player and hope that she comes to the WSL soon. But Momoko Tanikawa,
Nice.
Yeah.
technically might be from the week before, but it was Sunday after our record, so I'm counting it. It was her goal against Colombia in the She Believes Cup, 18 seconds in. Absolutely.
That in itself is
Screamer
iconic.
worthy.
She sat down a Colombia player and then just hit an absolutely incredible, I think it was like 25, 30 yards shot. Top bins.
Oh.
Amazing. She's not even 20 years old. Cleaning up for country, cleaning up for club. I'm obsessed. Someone needs to sign her. Someone needs to bring her to the WSL because I want to be able to watch her.
I just think I love the pool of Japanese talent we have in the WSL, and
just add to it.
Yeah,
come and join Fuka Nagano at Liverpool. Just come and do it. So yeah, those are our screamers of the week. So from Maya we have
Katie McCabe.
From Honor we have
Sandy Baltimore,
and mine is Momoko Tanikawa. We will put those clips up on Instagram if you've not seen them, and you can vote on Instagram and on Spotify for the ultimate screamer of the week. I don't know if it's something in the air or maybe it's the changing of the months. I don't know what. Everyone's just had a moment of delusion. But women's football had a quite particularly chaotic week last week.
quite a severe wobble.
Just, I don't know what they were doing. It's like they were all trying to outdo each other. So there were lots of news, lots of stories appearing in really quick succession. Some very surprising, some very concerning, especially some developments about the WSL league structure. But let's start and say bye-bye Beardy.
Tragic.
Oh, Bovril King.
Actually joking.
Just dropped completely out of nowhere the news that Matt Beard was leaving Liverpool with immediate effect. Honor is genuinely getting emotional here in the studio.
I don't know. I hadn't had the chance to process it. Yeah, and I just feel really upset.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
It's so surprised. I was shocked.
I was shocked at the time. I kind of did think that this summer
He would go.
there would be a parting of ways. I think
Really,
not that he's taken Liverpool as far as they could go, but I just kind of felt that he was maybe growing frustrated with the lack of investment in the team.
Yeah,
and
he was vocal about it.
Really, and I really, really respected how vocal he was consistently. But I was so shocked. Yeah, we're not going to be challenging for the Women's Champions League, but we still could get fifth in the league. We've got an FA Cup quarter-final coming up. A manager who clearly unites that squad. That squad loves him.
Yeah, he's really popular.
And experienced.
Could not understand the decision to get rid
I
of him.
also think it's a massive shame for the WSL because last season we lost kind of the biggest spokesperson for driving it forward, Emma Hayes.
Yeah.
The only real other person who did that, apart from Emma Hayes, was Matt Beard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit like, who's going to do that now? It's not going to be Mark Skinner.
No, there's no other manager I think in the league that is as outspoken as the two
Either
of them were.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a real shame, and it'll be really interesting to see where he goes next. How's Your Touch, the podcast and Instagram account that's all about the Scottish Women's Premier League, was positing the idea that it may be, because they have an interim manager currently, international management. Maybe could be the next career pivot for Scotland.
I
Australia
think he's going
also.
to the NWSL.
Do you think? You think Emma's tempting him over?
I think.
I can't imagine Beardy in America. I just can't.
I just think they have more resource there. Like, that's the thing that's been frustrating him.
Yeah,
I think
true.
they're growing the teams a lot more. They're kind of, it's a more exciting prospect, I think.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. I can see him swapping out the Bovril for the Bud Light.
Oh, he can't go drink a Bud Light. That just seems so antithetical to everything about him. But I would rate him as an international manager. I think his people management, his person-to-person management is so good, which considering the limited contact time you have with players.
I really like that Scotland shout, actually.
That would be really cool to see. And then not even a day later, Palace announced that they were also parting of ways with their manager, Laura Kaminski. So again, strange timing. I know they're in a relegation battle, maybe, relegation journey. But again, it felt like it's very against the odds for them to turn that around.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So to get rid of your manager...
It seems just quite savage considering the work that she's done for them.
To get them promoted.
Yeah.
It felt like you sort of
And
see
it's
that
not
journey
like
out.
they've then provided her with a squad of a team
No,
that's
for
able
the squad, it's
to
not like they've massively
naturally-
underperformed.
No.
Yeah.
I think they've really been punching above their weight.
Yeah.
And maybe, again, in the summer, a parting of ways, perhaps. But it felt, I don't know, quite disrespectful to the work that she's done.
I agree.
And then that was followed up what felt like about 20 minutes later with Southampton announcing that their manager was also leaving. And I half expected Remy Allen to pop up at Crystal Palace, the speed with which that had been announced. But yeah, it just felt like all of a sudden we had a massive spate of managerial changes. Then we also had the news that Chelsea was signing Becky Spencer, the goalkeeper from Spurs, on an emergency loan, which prompted everyone to be like, what?
Do you not already have enough goalkeepers?
Do you not already have enough players? But the reason for it apparently is because you have to have 3 keepers for the Champions League.
Yeah.
Right.
And they had a long-term injury and then with Musovic's pregnancy.
Yeah.
But it was very much like, hang on, is Becky Spencer going to finesse her way into a WSL medal? Is this what's about to happen here? And
Good for her.
It felt like everyone was high on fumes at this point. And then the news dropped. We touched on it a few episodes ago when the rumours first started appearing that the WPLL, who are the group in charge of the Women's Super League and of the Women's Championship, were considering getting rid of relegation and promotion. And some new details emerged this week, which make it seem like a much more locked down possibility. We'll just run through them quickly and then we'll sort of chat about them in a bit more detail. But the changes would be that relegation from the WSL would stop from the 26-27 season, so not the season coming, the season after that. That promotions from the Championship would continue with one club admitted to the WSL each season until both the WSL and the Championship reach 16 teams. There would then be a vote at the end of the 2030-2031 season about whether to reintroduce relegation from the WSL down to the Championship. The Championship's also going to be renamed the WSL 2, or renamed because it was at one point in time all called the WSL 2. And it seems like the clubs are open to it, or at least open to voting on it.
Yeah, so apparently there's going to be a vote, but we don't know when the vote's going to be.
No.
Firstly, I think I would love to see the WPLL consulting fans.
Yeah.
Because I think fan bases are sort of the lifeblood of the league, are the reason they're making these changes to grow the league. So it makes sense to me to be speaking to not only clubs and investors, which I'm sure they're doing, but doing some sort of public consultation.
But also managers and players as well.
Totally.
I think it was Gareth
just
Taylor.
all stakeholders.
Yeah, everyone involved in the game. I think Gareth Taylor said at the weekend that relegation and promotion are like the lifeblood of football, and fans want to see those battles. And who is this for other than investors?
Yeah.
So apparently they're
that's
saying that removing the threat of relegation would encourage owners to invest more and help develop a more competitive league. I think that is literally the opposite of what would happen.
So completely backwards.
Surely owners invest when the threat of being relegated is bigger. So they should be thinking about relegation zone rather than one relegation position. I just don't think, to me, that doesn't actually make sense.
We talked about this last week when we were talking about increasing the numbers of promotion and relegated teams and how you need that element of jeopardy because teams have been coasting.
Yeah, exactly.
If you get rid of any risk at all, then they're just going to continue to coast. I think it's so... How can you look at the history of what clubs have been doing over the past 3 years and think, oh yeah, if we take away the jeopardy, they'll suddenly invest?
Also, it feels like taking away relegation and then just having promotion from the Championship to the WSL one every year feels like they're priming us for a closed league.
Yes.
Really, kind of by stealth.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels as well like by doing that, they're just trying to copy what works in the NWSL by having a closed league, but without having all of the other work in the background around it.
It would kill off the rest of the pyramid.
Yep.
It would mean that it would be so hard to get investment for any lower league teams.
Yep.
It would really cut off growth in our game. Like, we have a completely different ecosystem to North American sports, so it just doesn't make sense.
When we first broached this topic and we were posting about it on social, we had somebody comment that said if there was a closed league and their local women's team had absolutely no chance of, I think they were a Nottingham Forest fan, no chance of promotion, then they would lose interest in that because...
Which is a huge shame.
You kill all interest in teams, and it's just such a backwards decision. What I found was also quite interesting was that apparently, according to The Guardian, the WPL has had informal discussions with Premier League clubs whose women's teams are outside the top 2 divisions, including Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth and Brentford, to establish their level of commitment. I hate that because that feels like you are just trying to recreate the Premier League in the WSL. if those clubs have not committed to their women's team thus far, it shouldn't be with the promise that they'll get to enter this perfect little league.
What about like London City Lionesses, who are doing the most to like grow the game? Michelle Kang, bless her, who's investing like off her own back. Like, it's true though, isn't it? It's like
Lewes FC that we've like you know historically a big move. Like
did really well in the FA Cup last year. Like, to consult women's teams simply because they have Premier League backing, it's just not reflective of the game.
And it's never going to line up like the top flight in the men's and the women's game.
Yeah,
like,
so don't try and force it.
Yeah,
it's really interesting that this dropped in the same week as Matt Beard losing his job as such a strident,
outspoken,
someone calling for significant investment across the board in players and facilities and like club structures. It feels really like there needs to be some kind of unified fan outcry against this, in the same way there was in men's football a couple of seasons ago against the idea of the European Super League.
Exactly.
Like that was such an effective mobilisation of fans and clubs to kill this idea, and I really hope we see something like that in the women's space. And I really hope we see clubs consult fans on this.
Yeah.
Because it will need a 2/3 majority of both WSL and Championship clubs.
Is that what they've said?
To go through.
Okay.
I think all changes, regardless of even the Championship being renamed to WSL2, needs that.
But let us know what you think. We'd love to hear what everyone thinks, and if anyone thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we did do a vote on Instagram, and it was a 100%
resounding no.
But if there's any possible benefits that we think we've not considered, then drop us a DM, drop us an email. We'd love to hear a different perspective on it. And just finally, in like the sort of weird week we've had in women's football in England, very much feels in line with our discussion about the commitment to clubs and to players, and how some managers are maybe better at that than others. After the Manchester United-Leicester game, forward Jessie, who's Brazilian, plays for United, signed, I think she was their record signing a couple of years ago. It
never really came to fruition for her. I was really excited when they signed Jessie, and then it never sort of came off.
Felt like they didn't really know how to use her, and kind of maybe just signed her so nobody else could. She posted on Instagram a sort of notes app screenshot saying, "Staying in a place where we don't feel happy is an agonising and lonely feeling. Every day seems heavier, and the simple fact of being there becomes a burden." And it was about how difficult she's finding it at Manchester United. "Sometimes the desire for change arises as an urgent need, but the fear of the unknown or insecurity about the future can paralyse us. However, it's essential to remember that we deserve to be in places and situations that bring us happiness and fulfilment. That's the only way we can grow." For sort of similar to the Chloe Kelly statement that sort of kick-started her eventual move to Arsenal. But the fact that we have players having to post statements on Instagram to call for change, and then it transpired that what she was alluding to was the fact that while she had been in Brazil for her brother's funeral, Manchester United had been trying to loan her out without her consent, which is
crazy,
just an insane. And I think if you give clubs the ability to like not actually build in a competitive, sustainable, healthy way, you will have more of these situations where it's entirely dependent on a manager.
Because they're just not accountable at all, are they?
Not accountable to anybody. So, solidarity with Jessie, because that sounds like a really horrendous situation. And
hopefully she gets a loan that she wants.
Yeah, she gets to move out of that, what sounds like quite a difficult environment. So we'll keep an eye on that and watch this space.
Shall we check in on the WOSO community notice board? Has anyone got any notices this week?
I do. I've got something quite cool, and also everyone go buy a lottery ticket because I'm about to praise Everton. So weird things are clearly happening. But so Everton men have a new stadium that they're going to move into from the start of next season. So the Freaking Group, who are the new-ish owners of Everton, have announced that they are considering making Goodison Park the new home for Everton women.
That would be
really?
so cool.
Moving them into the stadium. I assume maybe also the academy teams as well. But making Goodison Park the new home for their women's team. So they currently play in Walton Hall Park, which is about 5-6 miles outside of Liverpool city centre. 2,000-ish capacity. No cover, no catering options. It's sort of like standard small ground. And one of their key goals, apparently, since having come in as the new owners, is to grow. They're not sort of aiming to win the league or putting a time limit on that, but it's to grow both the profile and the appeal of the women's team. They want to also use what they can from the stadium to sort of benefit the local community, but this would mean that the stadium continues to be used and a really iconic British football ground.
Yeah, I think also I really love that their goal specifically is to increase the appeal. Like, because I think such a barrier for so many women's games. You've spoken about it, I've spoken about it. You go to these stadiums that are like miles out of the city.
Yeah.
Even when I go to Meadow Park or like Kings Meadow, none of them are easy to get to, particularly. So if you're just removing another barrier to grow a fan base, that's only a good thing. And yeah, like you say, in such an iconic stadium.
And it's like, it's ambitious because it's just shy of 40,000 capacity, but be
You've got
ambitious.
to start somewhere though. Yeah, exactly. Like if we're going to grow the game, we have to be doing things like this. So I think that's a great move.
And as well as like, it's a place that Everton fans obviously know and love. And if they're men's fans moving on to the new stadium, it would be great for people to have a reason to still go back and visit.
Yeah, exactly.
You have that attachment to that stadium.
Yeah, you might just go there because you want to go to Goodison Park, and then actually you really enjoy it and you realise it's a great afternoon out, and you keep coming back.
Yeah, it felt like such a good sign for how like committed the owners are, because they obviously bought quite a lot. The five, 6 players in the January transfer window, so there was like an immediate commitment from the new owners. But this is like, oh, you are back in the women's team. You are genuinely ambitious and want to create something lasting here. And I just thought that was such big mad respect.
Big respect. And Kelly Gargo, best signing ever.
Yeah. And also another great thing from Everton that came out recently was Brian Sorensen. There was an Everton fan on Twitter who, Anna, if you're already feeling emotional, this might tip you over the edge. But there was an Everton fan on Twitter asking if anybody had spare tickets. I think it was for the Everton men's match, because his friend had just been diagnosed with cancer and he wanted the ability to like send his friend and his family to the match. And Brian Sorensen piped up on Twitter, was like, I've got tickets. Let me know. I'll get them to you.
Oh, he's so good.
I like Brian, so I really like him.
Yeah. I just, him and Matt Beard. It's like the Merseyside, lovely.
The Mersey boys.
Remind me he's going.
But yeah, so just lots and lots of great news from Everton this week is what I'm putting on the notice board.
I love that.
That is all we've got time for this week, but join us next Tuesday where we'll be seeing who's made it through to the FA Cup semi-finals and getting to grips with the NWSL ahead of their new season. But until then,
follow us on Instagram, TikTok and everywhere else at screamers_pod. Or drop us an email at screamerspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear your thoughts and any topics you want us to discuss.
Find us on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you liked it, please rate and review.
Yes, please.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.